Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
Put it out
Stuck
there.
under the bed.
What was the
Hell
consequences
yeah. I
when you
mean,
said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to. That's what my assistant said. I was like, oh.
Like online, because that's really what it is. It's the photographs and stuff come through the feed.
Right.
And I was like, what? Like, because she had like,
because she did
like the booties up in the air with her head stuck under the bed.
Just when you thought the Diddy saga couldn't get any wilder, 50 Cent throws gasoline on the fire by dropping hints about some exclusive behind-the-scenes footage. And who supposedly sent it? None other than Terrence Howard. We're talking alleged recordings from Diddy's infamous Freakoffs. And suddenly, years of whispers and Terrence Howard's own cryptic comments about being sidelined in Hollywood start clicking into place. It feels like Terrence is finally ready to pull back the curtain entirely, and the details emerging are absolutely scorching. For the longest time, Terrence has suggested he was essentially blackballed, pushed out because he refused to play along with certain unsavory behind-the-scenes demands. Now, with the storm swirling around Diddy, it's looking less like sour grapes, and more like he might have been sounding the alarm all along. People are finally starting to question who was really pulling the strings, making those career-defining calls from behind the velvet ropes of the industry's elite circles. And let's be brutally honest, Diddy's name is far from the only one being whispered in connection with this kind of alleged behavior. But Terrence didn't just point fingers vaguely, he specifically dragged Diddy's rumored flame, Young Miami, right into the thick of it. The word is, she wasn't just a guest at these notorious parties. She was allegedly part of the inner circle, involved in the chaos. What really sent shockwaves through the internet, though, was Terrence's claim that he actually caught her doing something specific on camera during one of these events. The implication? Whatever it was, it's supposedly far more scandalous than anyone imagined. This isn't just your standard celebrity gossip. This feels like a potential earthquake threatening to crack the foundations of some very powerful players. The sheer audacity of Terrence dropping this information, seemingly unprompted, adds another layer of intrigue. Nobody was publicly pressing him for dirt on Diddy. Nobody even knew he potentially had these kinds of receipts. Then, almost out of the blue, he appears on a podcast and just unleashes. The way he described his own experiences, the alleged setups, the uncomfortable invitations disguised as business, it aligns unnervingly well with the kind of stories that have been circulating about Diddy in hushed tones for years. This convergence of narratives is forcing everyone to reconsider what they thought they knew. So let's peel back another layer of this increasingly complex and disturbing situation, focusing on those alleged shady setups and the deeply uncomfortable power dynamics Terrence Howard claims he personally navigated.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands-off with somebody. A number of producers come in to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you or looking at you like you're a woman. When you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back.
Yeah, Terrence Howard didn't just hear rumors. He claims he experienced Diddy's alleged tactics firsthand. He recounted a time Diddy supposedly reached out, claiming he needed help with his acting. Now think about it. Diddy's had a few minor roles, sure, but nothing that would typically necessitate calling in an Oscar-nominated actor like Terrence Howard for coaching. It felt off from the jump. Still, giving him the benefit of the doubt, Terrence agreed to meet, expecting a professional discussion about the craft. But according to Terrence, the moment he arrived, the entire atmosphere shifted. The energy wasn't about acting. It felt like Diddy had an entirely different, unspoken agenda. He allegedly started acting differently, moving in ways that made Terrence deeply uncomfortable, testing boundaries. Terrence, known for his intensity and firm principles, apparently wasn't having any of it. He stated very clearly that he doesn't engage in those kinds of games, shut the situation down immediately, and made a swift exit. No ambiguity, no negotiation. But the implications didn't end with his personal encounter. Terrence went further, suggesting his experience wasn't unique. He made the explosive claim that virtually every man who attended one of Diddy's now infamous parties encountered something similar, something that went far beyond typical party behavior. He used the striking phrase that these men essentially lost their man cards at these events, implying situations designed to compromise or humiliate them. This paints a picture not of innocent celebrity hangouts, but of potentially predatory environments operating behind closed doors. What makes this even more chilling is that this isn't some recent revelation born from the current Diddy controversy. Terrence has been vocal about resisting certain pressures in Hollywood for years, suggesting this is a systemic issue, not just isolated incidents.
But when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man.
Terrence Howard has been beating this drum for a while now, insisting his career trajectory wasn't derailed by lack of talent or difficult behavior, but by his refusal to conform to what he describes as Hollywood's deeply twisted rulebook. A few years back, he started opening up about the real reasons he considered stepping away from acting, and it wasn't about burnout or a shortage of offers. He stated point blank that the industry felt like it was actively trying to strip him of his masculinity, to break him down. He claims that once he planted his feet firmly and refused to bend to their will, refusing certain roles or situations he found demeaning, the narrative around him began to change. Whispers started circulating. He was difficult, hard to work with, temperamental. It's a familiar pattern, disturbingly similar to the tactics often used to discredit women in the industry who speak out against powerful figures, smear the reputation, isolate the individual, protect the system. So when Terrence suddenly announced his retirement from acting back in December 2022, it caught many by surprise. From the outside, his career seemed solid. He was still landing significant roles, his fan base remained loyal, and there was no public scandal or major fallout with studios preceding the announcement. It seemed like a quiet, perhaps premature exit, but Terrence insisted the visible narrative was a carefully constructed facade. Behind the scenes, he alleges, they were deliberately putting him in compromising or uncomfortable positions, almost daring him to refuse, testing how much he would tolerate to keep his career afloat. When he consistently refused to compromise his principles, he claims they began the slow, insidious process of edging him out, making opportunities scarcer, making the whispers louder. It wasn't a dramatic firing, it was a quiet squeeze.
Just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right, because P. Diddy be wanting to party. And you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did. See, I got the receipts for everything I'm telling you. That's why I can say them so freely.
Can I need number? You here, get your number.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Come on. Because early on you was accusing me of being...
He explicitly stated they tried to attack his manhood, his core sense of self. And when he refused to yield, Hollywood allegedly reacted swiftly and silently. Before the public fully grasped what was happening, he was effectively sidelined. A quiet exit, no dramatic confrontations reported, just less presence. He did eventually return from that short-lived retirement, but he's clearly moving with a different kind of awareness now, far more cautious and selective. And being back, even partially, hasn't silenced him. If anything, he seems more determined than ever to expose what he views as the dark underbelly of the entertainment world. One of the most consistent points he's raised? The relentless pressure he allegedly faced to wear a dress for roles on screen. He's been adamant that this wasn't about artistic expression or character development. It felt to him like a deliberate attempt to humiliate him, to chip away at his identity as a strong black man. He described these instances as feeling like setups, non-negotiable demands tied to lucrative opportunities, and he stood his ground, repeatedly saying no. This isn't just Terrence's isolated experience either. It echoes claims made by other prominent black male actors over the years. This idea that there's a strange, persistent push for black men in Hollywood to perform femininity, often in ways completely irrelevant to the plot, has surfaced multiple times. Comedian Cat Williams famously went scorched earth on this topic during his explosive interview on Club Shay Shay. He alleged that this dress-wearing pressure is a long-standing game in Hollywood, often presented alongside incredibly tempting paychecks designed to make actors compromise their image and integrity. Cat himself claimed he turned down massive sums of money on multiple occasions specifically because he refused to wear a dress for a role he felt was demeaning. According to Cat, this pressure to trade your dignity for dollars is far more pervasive than the public realizes. Terrence Howard, standing firm, is just one more voice confirming this alleged disturbing trend. When the shockwaves from Cat Williams' interview were still rattling the internet, Terrence Howard didn't hesitate. He seized the moment, adding his own potent testimony to the conversation, and it landed with significant force. For years, the industry narrative surrounding Terrence often revolved around rumors of a volatile temper or being generally difficult on set. These whispers served as convenient explanations for any career bumps or role replacements, but Cat's revelations provided Terrence with a platform to directly refute that narrative. He made it crystal clear. He wasn't replaced in key roles because he was problematic. He was allegedly pushed out because he refused to be played. He wouldn't allow the system to mock him or strip away his self-respect. In his own words, that refusal was the real reason they let him go. He dropped a quote that resonated deeply, attributing it to his father's wisdom. "Never take the vertebrae out your back or the base out your throat. I ain't raised no sheep, I raised men, stay a man." He then lamented the current climate, adding, "Being a man comes with a curse now because this society ain't built for real men anymore." Terrence drove the point home, suggesting a deliberate, covert effort to dismantle the masculinity of strong black men, arguing that authentic strength in black men is often perceived as a threat by the establishment. He didn't mince words, claiming, "They let white men be strong," but a black man asserting his power is immediately labeled dangerous or difficult. He declared he wouldn't diminish himself to fit into someone else's predetermined, potentially emasculating script. "I'm not removing any part of myself just to make your story work," he asserted. "Maybe it's your story that needs to grow." He argued passionately that men should be allowed to embody their strength while simultaneously appreciating female beauty, without one negating the other. With all this context, his recent targeted claims about Diddy suddenly carry even more weight. Fans and observers are connecting the dots between his long-standing fight against industry pressures and his specific allegations against Diddy, and the picture emerging is deeply unsettling. But hold on, because the rabbit hole apparently goes even deeper. Insiders are now whispering that Terrence is still holding back, sitting on information potentially far more damaging than anything revealed so far. And guess who's reportedly smack in the middle of this next potential bombshell? Diddy's heavily rumored associate, Young Miami. Right after Terrence's podcast interview blew up, 50 Cent initially played it cool, posting something like, "No comment, I'm staying positive, God help us all." Classic 50 deflection. But that didn't last long. Soon enough, he shifted gears, starting to tease these wild claims about a Freakoff video, allegedly supplied by Terrence Howard. Fans immediately speculated this was the footage Terrence mentioned filming himself at one of Diddy's parties. And what's allegedly on this tape? The rumors point directly at Young Miami, supposedly caught in a highly compromising situation that has people speculating wildly. Honestly, at this stage, given the sheer volume of allegations swirling, it almost doesn't feel surprising. The streets, or rather, the gossip blogs and social media threads, have been buzzing for a while now, suggesting that Young Miami, one half of the City Girls, knows much more about Diddy's alleged activities than she's ever let on. The speculation isn't just that she was present. It's that she might have been an active participant, even allegedly complicit in some of the darker scenarios being described. There are incidents that fuel these suspicions. Remember the drama when another one of Diddy's rumored side pieces, Gina Huen, posted a picture with him? Young Miami reportedly went ballistic. It wasn't just typical online shade. She allegedly unleashed a torrent of threats and insults, including a particularly vicious line suggesting Diddy could force Gina into participating in one of the parties as payback. The alleged messages that circulated were brutal. Miami supposedly taunted Gina, saying things like, "Gina, you've been down bad ever since I came in the picture. You've been crying for a baby for 15 years. You've been around as a placeholder. That EP and Diddy gave you crumbs when he felt like it. You an eater?" She didn't hold back, adding, "You the same girl who cried to Tasha K about wanting a baby? Poor Sushi. I have a career, you a certified freak. You haven't heard from Diddy since the awards. You the one talking about getting rid of babies? Let that hurt go, hun." Then came the line that set the internet ablaze. "If I wanted you to eat me, Diddy would have had you on your knees. You would have been a munch." Not just a munch, a munch. That specific degrading phrasing sent collective shivers down spines and intensified scrutiny on her alleged role in Diddy's orbit. And that disturbing munch comment isn't even the most serious allegation linking Young Miami's name to potentially coercive situations. Her name surfaced again in connection with another harrowing story involving a different woman allegedly involved with Diddy who ended up pregnant. According to reports and subsequent legal filings, this woman claims she was aggressively bullied and pressured into silence. Court documents filed by a Jane Doe, who remains anonymous for her safety, allege a deeply disturbing pattern of coercion. She claims that she was compelled to travel to Diddy's Los Angeles mansion at his insistence. Once there, she alleges she was pressured into ingesting unknown substances, possibly in Diddy's bathroom. The filing explicitly states she later discovered these substances likely contained ketamine or a similar dissociative drug cocktail, which caused her to black out and drift in and out of consciousness throughout the night. She emphatically stated she never consented to taking these substances. What she described happening next is horrifying. She claimed she woke up covered in bruises, clear physical evidence, she argues, that something terrible occurred while she was incapacitated. She alleges a pattern where Diddy would ply her with alcohol and drugs until she passed out, only for her to awaken later with injuries and no memory of what transpired. This wasn't a one-time event. She claims this abusive cycle continued repeatedly, potentially up until mid-2023. Note: clip reference to 2024 seems unlikely, likely meant 2023 or earlier based on context. But the situation escalated dramatically when she discovered she was pregnant, allegedly with Diddy's child. That's when, according to Jane Doe, the harassment began, specifically naming Young Miami as the instigator. She claims Young Miami relentlessly bullied her, pressuring her to terminate the pregnancy, creating immense stress that Jane Doe believes directly contributed to her subsequent miscarriage. The legal documents detail her taking a positive pregnancy test, informing Diddy, and then immediately facing intense pressure from Korea Brownlee, identified as a known associate of Diddy, to get rid of the baby. Jane Doe states she lost the pregnancy shortly after this alleged harassment began and cut off contact with Diddy and his circle for months afterward. The critical link? Korea Brownlee is Young Miami's government name. Given Miami's documented public outburst when Diddy had a baby with another woman in 2022, many observers find Jane Doe's claims chillingly plausible. Just when the allegations seemed to reach peak intensity, Lil Rod's updated lawsuit dropped, adding even more layers to the complex web surrounding Diddy and his alleged associates, including Young Miami. This wasn't just a minor amendment. The revised filing contained explosive and deeply troubling new claims specifically targeting her. According to this lawsuit, Young Miami wasn't merely a passive guest at Diddy's infamous gatherings, she was allegedly deeply embedded in the operations. The suit goes further, claiming members of her family were also involved. It alleges that Young Miami wasn't just aware of the activities happening behind closed doors, but potentially facilitated or participated in them. Lil Rod's filing points to a specific shocking incident. During one event, Diddy was allegedly intoxicated and offered cocaine to Lil Rod, Mr. Jones. Jones declined and went to the restroom. What allegedly happened next is profoundly disturbing. According to the lawsuit, Young Miami's cousin suddenly entered the bathroom, allegedly began groping Mr. Jones without consent, then dropped to her knees and initiated an unwanted S***ixual act. Jones claims he immediately pushed her away and left the bathroom. But the alleged harassment didn't stop there. He claims the cousin continued to pursue him, undressing herself and attempting to straddle him and force an encounter in front of Diddy and his staff. The documents frame this not as an isolated bizarre event, but as part of a disturbing pattern of behavior tolerated or even encouraged within Diddy's circle. Another incident detailed in the suit allegedly occurred on Thanksgiving night, 2022, in Miami. Mr. Jones claims Diddy summoned him and another man, Forrest Taylor, to a studio bathroom. Diddy allegedly asked for a $100 bill so they could all partake in nose candy, cocaine, together. Jones states he was terrified and managed to avoid the situation only because he didn't have the cash on him. But Diddy allegedly didn't let it go. A short time later, according to the suit, Diddy engaged in the same activity, this time with Young Miami present instead. And the allegations in Lil Rod's suit keep piling up, painting an increasingly grim picture. One of the most startling claims accuses Young Miami of directly participating in Diddy's alleged procurement and use of illegal substances. According to the court documents, she allegedly acted as a courier, helping Diddy move drugs and ensuring he had access to them wherever he traveled. The filing cites an alleged incident during rehearsals for the Something in the Water festival in Virginia. Mr. Jones claims he personally witnessed Diddy consuming lines of coke in his dressing room. The situation allegedly escalated when Diddy desired Tucci, often used as slang for a specific drug, sometimes pink cocaine 2C, but his assistant Brendan had forgotten to pack it. Who allegedly stepped in to solve this problem? The lawsuit claims Christina Coram, another associate, arranged for someone to fly the substance in directly from Miami, highlighting the lengths allegedly taken to facilitate Diddy's reported habits. But the lawsuit saves perhaps its most damning allegation regarding Young Miami for last. It claims she, along with other women like Jade and Daphne Joy, were more than just party guests or casual associates. According to the filing, these women were allegedly paid a regular monthly fee to function as, putting it delicately, private entertainers for Diddy. The suit alleges these payments were wired directly by Robin Greenhill, Diddy's chief of staff, and frames this entire arrangement as part of a larger, ongoing criminal enterprise involved in illicit activities. At this point, the sheer number of connections alleged between Young Miami and the darkest aspects of the Diddy accusations is staggering. And now, floating above all this is the specter of 50 Cent, allegedly holding video evidence provided by Terrence Howard, potentially showing Young Miami caught red-handed, or rather, in 4K. Knowing 50 Cent's history, his long-standing and venomous feud with Diddy, and his absolute love for chaos and public humiliation, the idea that he possesses such material is explosive. He's arguably the last person anyone implicated would want holding potentially career-ending receipts. That man doesn't just stir the pot, he gleefully tips it over. Considering the decades of bad blood, it feels less like a question of if 50 will drop something, and more like when. Terrence Howard might have just cracked open a door, but if 50 Cent hits that upload button with verifiable proof, it could slam shut on several careers simultaneously. The game could be completely over. Now, I have to ask you, what do you make of all this? With Terrence Howard bringing Young Miami back into the center of this storm, do you believe she's entangled much deeper than previously thought? Are these allegations credible, or is it becoming a runaway train of accusations? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Seriously, blow it up! And hey, if you found this breakdown insightful, do me a solid. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share this with anyone following the story, and definitely ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss the next update because trust me, this story is only getting wilder from here. Catch you on the next one.